The Clippers and the Nuggets have been waging war in the 4-5 matchup. The past two games have been a chess match of schemes, with Game 2 culminating in the Clippers decimating the Nuggets' defense. Possession after possession, Kawhi Leonard, Norm Powell, and Ivica Zubac blew up the Nuggets' zone looks and looked virtually unguardable. So what happened, and can the Clippers do this again? Let's review. Now, if you watched any of the fourth quarter last night, you might be confused by what exactly the Nuggets' defensive scheme was. At times, the Nuggets are being brought up in ball screens and taking man-on-man assignments, and at other times, the backline is spacing out like a 2-3 zone. Well, this is exactly what I think was a strong side zone. So what is that? Well, it's in the name. Zones, at their simplest, can be 2-3, 3-2, 1-2-2, and so on. And they just describe the alignment of the defense and the area that they have to cover. Different zones are obviously better than others at preventing different types of offensive looks. And if you want more on that, then subscribe and we'll be sure to cover more about zones in the future. But in last night's game, the Nuggets ran a strong side zone. And in strong side zones, your backline help is going to play a zone, and it's essentially going to always rotate to the strong side where the ball is and where it comes, usually in anticipation of a drive to prevent and deter easy drives. So this is essentially last night what looked like a 2-3 zone, and then the backline especially is going to be doing that help rotation. So let's start in the third quarter and look at what appears to be this strong side zone. Now, the Nuggets are clearly lined up in what appears to be 2-3, but look as Jokic rotated there early to try and prevent Ivica Zubac from getting anything easy on MPJ. Now, one of the ways that you can break any zone is by getting inside the zone, flashing to the middle or busting the zone from the outside. Chris Dunn is kind of trying to do that right here by getting into the middle of this zone. Of course, Jokic is then going to rotate back this way to prevent Dunn from getting anything easy. But then watch this point of attack matchup. Norm Powell is obviously a super athletic and gifted attacker, and Jamal Murray isn't the best one-on-one defender. And because of that, he's able to just get inside super easily. When you get inside, you collapse the zone, and that's something that can do a lot of damage, because when you're inside and you collapse the zone, you can then make kickouts to what should be relatively wide open shooters. Or if they're maybe more attached, maybe more spread out in their zone, then you have a lot of space inside to put up a shot like Norm Powell does here, and he was killing it with the floater game last night. Now let's go to the fourth. Let's look at the pre-rotation that happens. As Kawhi gets inside, both Aaron Gordon and Russell Westbrook are rotating in this sort of strong side zone look. But again, what's been happening on the weak side? Ivica Zubac is getting inside. He's flashing to the middle of the paint. And when you do that, the zone is obviously not prepared. But even if Jokic is able to get there barely in time, it just so happens that Zubac and Powell especially are really good at these little floater push shots, whatever you want to call them. And he's able to just easily score like that. So that's one example of being able to bust that zone by forcing that rotation and then flashing middle. Now here it starts off with the Zubac and Harden in this high ball screen. Zubac is going to roll off of this double from Aaron Gordon and Jokic. Harden doesn't actually get him the ball though. He gives it to Kawhi, and then let's watch how this strong side zone reacts. As he gets inside, notice how Jokic is essentially pre-rotating here. This is what happens in a strong side zone. This side of the floor, the strong side, and then your zone, especially on the back line, is going to move and try and prevent Kawhi from getting anything easy. He was obviously having a killer night, so you want to do that. But then watch Norm Powell. Where has Norm Powell moved to? He's moved to the inside of the zone, and that's exactly what you have to do. You have to flash middle. Whenever you flash middle, especially in strong side zones, when guys like Kawhi are essentially always going to get doubled, then all Kawhi has to do is just make a pass over the top, and suddenly this defense is not prepared for those quick push shots. Again here, high ball screen, Zubac and Harden Jamal Murray and Jokic are going to double off that. So this might be what appears like some sort of man look, right? Some sort of man look and ball screen coverage. But watch how the rest of this possession plays out. Zubac is able to get where? He's able to get inside. And when he gets inside, if Harden can get him this ball, then you're creating problems with your zone. Because he is able to get the ball to him, notice how Jokic had to sprint back to help with the Zubac. MPJ was already there, has to help off of Derrick Jones Jr. And Aaron Gordon has now helped all the way here to prevent any easy drive by Zubac, which then leads to the other downfall of zones is whenever you can kick to wide open outside shooters. Why is Kawhi wide open? Well, it's because Gordon had to rotate here, and it's because Jokic had to rotate back to driving a beat to Zubac because of this strong side zone, meaning that there's going to be a corner shooter open. Kawhi again burned them with shooting last night. So here we're going to actually run two ball screens. First, it's a high ball screen with Zubac and Kawhi. After that ball screen is made, he's again... Where did the Clippers keep going? They keep going to the inside. Zubac gets inside, although then he's going to flow pretty quickly into another ball screen with Norm Powell. And because of that, now Norm is just in the interior and does yet another killer push shot. Norm Powell also burned them with those shots last night. But I think something to pay attention to if we just want to go back and look at that play is the other downfall of zones. We've seen Kawhi shoot from the corner. We've seen Zubac and Norm Powell and Chris Dunn earlier flash to the inside. But the third thing that can happen is, especially in these strong side zones, if it's too easy to penetrate the outside of your zone as Russ just gets completely annihilated by the screen from Zubac, then your defense is always going to collapse because now you've let someone on the inside without anyone flashing middle. And now there's a trade-off that this Nuggets zone has to make. Do we help off Kawhi, who's hot right now? Do we help off of Harden, who's a good three-point shooter? The answer is probably not. You don't want to do that. So they're going to stay attached. And now it's up to Jokic to take this 2-on-1 matchup. So let's say that Norm Powell doesn't decide to take the shot. Well, Zubac can just continue going off that high ball screen and then he can make a bounce pass to him. Or he could just pass it to him directly and then we have a rolling Zubac with speed. There's just a lot of options, especially when it's that easy to break from the outside. Now again, this is yet another example of the zone being penetrated, as Jamal Murray didn't really do a good job in these assignments last night, especially Norm Powell in the fourth, just completely breaks him down. And then, yeah, you have the pre-rotation from Jokic, but let's also look at what else is happening on the floor. Christian Brown is not going to rotate too much from James Harden. And then we have Aaron Gordon and MPJ who want to stay relatively close to the outside. Because of this, you have a Jamal Murray who's a step behind, and you have a Jokic that's been forced to step up in this strong side zone when, again, you're usually trying to rotate in anticipation of the drive to prevent anything easy. Well, this leaves one person wide open in the back. You can see he's actually pointing up. I think he wants the lob. But there's nothing the Nuggets can really do here because as soon as he gets that pass, he's just inside. And then it's just a pretty easy shot and a foul for Ivica Zubac. The Nuggets did a really good job decimating that zone. They picked it apart so nicely last night. And I think it's really a testament to how disciplined their offense is. And finally, the final factor that really was responsible for the Clippers' win had almost nothing to do with the zone as much as it just did the excellent shooting of Kawhi Leonard. Something that can happen in zones is that you can simply shoot your opponents out of them. More shots are going to be open, especially on the outside when you're playing against a zone. That's why teams run it. For example, against the Warriors when they don't have their shooting lineup out. But if you're having the type of shooting night that Kawhi did, where he's just elevating over anyone and draining any shot he wants, there's not a lot you can do. So in Game 3, I highly doubt that Denver will look to run the same strong side zone looks, especially in the fourth quarter. And I think why they won't do that is because the Clippers have now shown twice, especially against the Warriors zone, that they can simply dissect these zones with ease. and that it's really hard to try and hide weaker defenders like Russ and Jamal Murray against the Clippers, especially when they have so many tools that are especially good at getting in the inside and being athletic finishers. In Game 3, the Nuggets are definitely going to have to fix their late game defense. Thanks for watching. Let us know if you agree.